The aliens laughed when they first studied humans. They looked at the soft, round eyes and the faces of men and women, and they mocked them. They called them fragile orbs that could break with a finger. They said humans were half blind when the light was gone. They believed that after sunset humans would stumble and fall like children lost in the night. They were sure that a species with such weak eyes could never stand as warriors in the dark. But what they did not know, what they could never imagine, was that humans had learned the art of hunting in shadows long before they ever left their homeworld, long before ships and stars, long before engines and weapons of light. Humans had walked into caves with only fire. Humans had stalked prey through forests lit only by the moon. Humans had sharpened their senses in silence, and in silence they had killed. The alien fleets wrote reports that humans were fragile in the dark. Their commanders spoke with certainty. They said a war fought under the sun might be dangerous, but a war fought in the night would be easy. And so they spread this belief from ship to ship, from station to station, until it became a kind of truth among them. The young soldiers of their kind repeated the tale with laughter. Humans cannot fight in the night. They cannot hunt when the light is gone. Their eyes fail and they fall. Their fear grows and they scatter. They believe this with all their hearts. And so, when a message came of a human ship lost and fallen on one of their hunting worlds, they thought it was fortune. They thought the night itself would give them victory. The ship had fallen from the sky like a wounded beast. It tore through the clouds and struck the forests of a wild planet. The wreck burned for hours, sending black smoke across the sky. The aliens saw it as a gift. The prey had delivered itself into their hands. The leaders called their hunting packs together. Tall creatures with sharp teeth and glowing eyes, their bodies shaped by generations of darkness, their skin reflecting no light, their voices low and cruel. They prepared themselves for the hunt. They told their soldiers this would be sport. Nothing more. They would stalk the weak ones, corner them, and tear them apart when the sun was gone. The humans inside the wreck pulled themselves from fire and steel. Some were hurt, some were dead, but those who lived gathered close. Their commander spoke in a low voice, his words steady, his eyes calm. He told them the truth. The enemy thought them weak. The enemy thought them blind. And that mistake would be their doom. The planet turned. The sun bled into the horizon. The forests grew dark, and the hunt began. The aliens moved with silent steps, their claws pressing into the dirt, their glowing eyes cutting through the dark like blades. They were certain of their advantage. Certain the prey would trip and stumble. Certain the humans would cling to firelight and give away their position. They spread through the forest, moving like shadows inside shadows. They followed the scent of smoke, the trace of blood, the prints of human boots. They whispered to each other in their strange language. They promised glory to the one who brought the first kill. The forest was vast and old, the air heavy with mist, the ground soft and wet. The night creatures of the world sang in strange voices, but the aliens paid no mind. Their confidence was too great. They believed the humans would be afraid of the dark, but the humans had grown silent, so silent that even the wind seemed louder than their breath. The commander of the alien pack raised his hand. The hunters stopped. Their ears twitched. Their glowing eyes scanned the shadows. There was movement ahead, faint, almost nothing, but enough to stir unease. They whispered that it was only the wind, only the forest, only the prey fumbling in the dark. But something in the silence pressed against them, a weight that they did not understand. The humans had prepared, their weapons ready, their hearts steady. Their commander had told them this was not their first night hunt. They had hunted beasts on Earth, beasts stronger and faster, beasts with fangs and claws. And those hunts had taught them the same truth. Vision is not the only way to see. The aliens drew closer, their shapes moving between twisted trees, their breaths steaming in the cold air. They moved without fear, but the forest had grown too quiet. The insects no longer sang. The birds no longer moved. Even the mist seemed to wait. The aliens thought themselves hunters, yet they had stepped into the sightless eyes of something older, something hidden. A rustle came from the branches above. One hunter spun his head upward, but there was nothing there. Another swore he felt movement behind him, but when he turned he saw only shadows. The commander growled, ordering silence, ordering patience. They would find the humans, they would strike. But what none of them knew was that the humans were already watching, already listening, already waiting in the dark with calm breath and steady hands. The hunt that the aliens thought they had begun was not theirs at all. It was the humans who had begun the hunt. It was the humans who would turn the forest into a killing ground. The night grew deeper. The shadows swallowed everything, and the aliens moved forward, blind to the truth. They thought they were the hunters, but already, in that silent forest, they were the prey. And as the first scream began to rise in the distance, the darkness seemed to whisper a warning that none of them would hear until it was far too late. The humans were waiting, and the night itself belonged to them. The forest was alive with whispers, yet the humans made no sound. The aliens thought the shadows would hide them. They thought the night was their kingdom, but they were wrong. The night did not belong to them. Not anymore. The sky above the shattered wreck was black without stars. The clouds smothered the heavens. No moon gave light. Only darkness stretched from tree to tree, endless and suffocating. The aliens were born in such nights. Their glowing eyes pierced the black. Their claws gripped the wet earth. Their teeth flashed like knives. They moved with pride and confidence. They believed the humans were helpless now, blind wanderers clinging to fire and fear. But the humans had not lit a fire. They had not cried out. They had not stumbled. They had vanished into the forest, as if swallowed whole by the night. The alien hunters paused, listening. Their ears twitched to every sound. Insects buzzed and died away. Leaves shifted in the wind. A branch cracked under weight unseen. They hissed to one another, certain they were closing in. Their leader raised a claw and pointed forward. The pack spread wide. Their glowing eyes swept left and right. Every shadow looked harmless to them, for they had always trusted their sight. But trust can be a weakness when the enemy knows your pride. The humans crouched low among the trees, their breaths steady, their eyes half closed. They were not blind, not truly. They could see shapes and outlines, the faintest trace of starlight through the clouds. More than sight, they used sound. The whisper of a branch under alien weight, the crunch of a claw against wet soil, the faint hiss of breath through sharp teeth. They marked every sound and built a map in their minds. The aliens moved closer. One of them sniffed the air, catching the trace of smoke from the wreck. Another smiled with sharp teeth, whispering of prey, too weak to hide. They felt no fear, yet something unseen pressed against them. The forest seemed to lean inward. The mist grew thick and heavy, and the silence grew sharper than any blade. A sudden cry of a night beast echoed across the valley, a long, low howl that sent shivers into the air. The aliens paused, their glowing eyes flicking toward the sound. But the humans did not move. They had already counted the distance, already marked the timing, already knew how to use the natural voices of the world as cover. The leader of the alien pack growled, his voice deep and filled with command. He told his hunters that the prey was close, too close, that soon they would strike. They believed him, for his words had always been true. They crept forward through the mist, their claws sinking deep into soil, their glowing eyes searching for motion. And then, faint, almost too faint, a sound came from ahead, the sound of a human footstep. The pack turned as one, grins spreading across their faces. They rushed forward, shadows leaping into shadows, their teeth bared, their eyes burning bright. But there was nothing, only silence, only empty space. The sound had been bait, nothing more, a whisper laid down by human hands. The aliens hissed in frustration. Some snarled, others cursed. They spread wider, hunting harder. The forest closed around them, branches tangling above like black claws, roots twisting below like snares. The mist clung to their skin, cold and damp. They moved faster, louder, less careful, anger rising inside them. The humans listened to every movement, every mistake. They crouched behind fallen trunks, lay flat in tall grass, slid between roots without sound. They felt the fear growing in the aliens, though the hunters did not yet name it fear. They felt the rhythm of the hunt shifting, step by step, moment by moment. One alien froze, his ears pricking. He swore he felt eyes on him, not glowing eyes like his own, but hidden ones, patient ones. He hissed to the others, warning them. They laughed, mocking him, saying he was nervous, saying the weak prey had no power here. But deep inside he knew something was wrong. The silence deepened, thicker than fog, heavier than night. Every breath seemed too loud. Every step seemed too sharp. The hunters began to move slower, their confidence slipping grain by grain. Then a sound cracked through the air, a branch snapping under weight. They turned as one, claws raised, eyes wide. But again there was nothing, only trees, only mist, only shadows. The leader growled with rage, his voice echoing through the forest. He told them the humans were playing tricks. He told them they would pay. But his words were more for himself than for the others. Even he felt it now, that pressure in the air, that weight in the silence. The aliens moved again, but this time their steps were uneven. Some glanced behind them, though they had never done so before. Some tightened their grip on weapons, though they had thought the hunt would be easy. Above them in the branches, a pair of human eyes watched, silent and calm. The soldier did not move, did not breathe loud. He marked the positions of every alien below, counting them, learning them. The humans were not running. They were preparing. The aliens pushed deeper into the forest, their glowing eyes bright in the black. They thought they had all the time in the world. They thought the night would never betray them. But in truth, the night had already turned. It no longer answered to their glowing eyes. It whispered instead to the ones who had no need for light, to the ones who had learned long ago that true hunting does not begin with sight. The humans were patient. Their commander had told them to wait. Wait until the aliens believed they were close to victory. Wait until their arrogance grew too heavy. Wait until their steps were louder, until their focus was broken. The aliens pressed forward, unaware of the trap closing around them, unaware that the map of the forest was no longer theirs. It was human now, human breath, human silence, human patience. The planet itself seemed to lean toward the humans, guiding them, sheltering them. The aliens whispered to one another, their voices low. They told each other to stay calm, to stay strong. But the whisper carried fear that had not been there before. The shadows were no longer their allies, the mist no longer their veil. The humans had become the unseen watchers. They were the stillness in the branches, the silence in the roots. They were everywhere, yet nowhere. And the aliens did not know it yet, but the hunt had already ended. The forest grew quiet, too quiet. The insects were gone, the birds were gone. Even the wind seemed to fade. All that remained was breath, human breath, slow and steady, and the faint sound of claws scratching dirt, moving deeper into danger. The aliens did not know, but already in that darkness, the first strike was waiting, sharp and merciless. And when it came, the night itself would turn against them. Darkness had fallen, but it did not belong to them anymore. It belonged to the humans. A scream cut through the night, raw and sharp. Then silence followed like a blade across the forest. The alien hunters froze where they stood, their glowing eyes wide, their claws trembling just for a breath. One of their own was gone, torn from the shadows without warning, taken without struggle, without sound until that final cry. They turned in all directions, their eyes sweeping through the mist, their fangs bared, their voices low with anger. But nothing moved, nothing shifted. The forest stood still and cold. The humans were nowhere, and yet everywhere. The leader growled, his voice a command, telling the hunters to hold formation, telling them not to break. But fear was already creeping through the pack. One whispered that he had seen something above, a shape in the branches. Another hissed that he felt breath at his back. Their glowing eyes cut through the black, but saw nothing. The night swallowed their vision like a trap. Humans crouched in silence, hidden in the trees and the soil, their breath slow, their movements smaller than shadows. They had waited with patience. The first strike had been planned. One alien pulled from the edge of the formation, caught in a rope that snapped tight around his legs. Dragged into the dark, silenced by a hand across his throat, his life ended before his voice could rise again. The hunters did not see it, only heard that scream, only knew that their number had fallen. Their pride cracked like thin glass, for they had promised themselves this hunt was simple. Now the silence mocked them. Now the mist seemed to press against their skin. They thought humans were blind, yet humans had seen them first. They thought humans would stumble, yet it was they who faltered now. The commander of the humans signaled with his hand, fingers curling. His soldiers moved like ghosts. No light touched their weapons. No sound betrayed their steps. They circled the alien pack, closing the net. Every fallen branch had been marked, every hollow root mapped in their minds. They moved without sight, guided by memory, guided by instinct, guided by the rhythm of breath and heartbeat. An alien hissed and lashed out at a shadow, claws cutting through empty air. His comrades snarled at him for wasting energy, but in his chest his heart raced faster than it ever had before. He whispered that something touched him, something cold brushed his shoulder. But when they looked, there was nothing. The mist thickened, the silence deepened, and still the humans did not show themselves. Then it happened again, another cry, short and sharp, another hunter gone. The pack closed ranks, their shoulders touching, their glowing eyes darting. Fear was no longer hidden, it poured from them like sweat. They had thought themselves predators, but now they smelled like prey. The human commander whispered through his calm, his voice low. He told his people to wait, not to rush. Fear was the weapon now. Fear would break them before the blade struck. The aliens muttered among themselves, their voices tight. They argued whether to retreat, but their leader hissed no, they could not. To retreat would be shame. To retreat would prove the stories false. He raised his weapon high, swore to cut down the next shadow, swore to kill the prey with his own hands. But the humans did not give him the chance. From behind the roots of a great tree, a soldier rose in silence. He moved swift as a breath, his blade cutting the air. The alien leader turned too late, his shoulder torn, his weapon knocked aside. He howled with fury, his eyes blazing. But before he could strike back, the human was gone, melted into the dark. The pack roared, charging toward the sound. But when they reached the roots, there was only mist. Their leader clutched his wound, his pride burning hotter than his pain. He shouted that humans were cowards, that humans hid instead of fighting. Yet his words carried no strength, only desperation. The humans listened, their faces calm. They knew patience would win. The night itself was theirs. Another soldier crept close, her breath even, her steps measured. She released a stone into the distance. The sound cracked like a broken branch. The aliens turned as one, rushing toward the noise. In that instant, from behind them, she struck, her blade sliding across the spine of the last in line. Another body fell without sound. The aliens spun, their teeth snapping. But once again they saw nothing. They snarled and swore, their glowing eyes sweeping madly. They were warriors of the dark, yet the dark betrayed them now. Their leader raised his claws, demanding they regroup, demanding they fight together. But their steps faltered, their courage thin. They whispered of curses, whispered of demons. For what else could move without eyes? What else could kill in the black without sight? The humans crouched above them in the branches, weapons ready. Their commander's voice whispered once more. He told them this was the way, to strike and vanish, until the enemy broke apart like dry wood. The aliens shifted, their formation weak. One hunter stepped too far, his foot catching in a hidden line of wire. A trap snapped, pulling him into the air, his body thrashing, his cries sharp and broken. The others turned, but by the time they reached him, his body was still. Only the rope swung gently in the mist. They looked into the trees, their glowing eyes wide. One whispered the words they all feared. "We are being hunted." The silence after those words was heavier than any weapon. It wrapped around their throats, it slowed their steps. The pride of their species, the arrogance of their vision, crumbled piece by piece. The human soldiers moved again, spreading through the forest. Their bodies part of the night, their minds sharp and calm. Every strike chosen, every sound measured. They were the unseen hunters now, and the aliens could not deny it any longer. The first strike had shattered the lie. The prey had become predators, and the hunters knew that before this night was done, the forest would drink deep of their blood. The scream of another fallen soldier split the night, and with it the truth spread through the pack like fire through dry grass. They were no longer chasing weak eyes. They were running from the gaze of something far more dangerous. The humans had begun the hunt, and it would not stop until the last alien fell. The aliens whispered in fear, their voices sharp and broken. They said the humans could not see. They said the humans were blind. Yet every strike came with deadly aim. Every step came with flawless timing, and still no eyes glowed in the dark. They asked themselves how the prey could find them, how the prey could strike in silence when their vision had failed, and their questions turned into fear that tasted like iron in their mouths. The forest was heavy with mist, branches above twisting like black claws, roots below rising like traps. The aliens stood with weapons raised, their glowing eyes flicking across the dark. But no answer came, no shape revealed itself. Only the whisper of leaves moved by wind, only the faint sound of breath they could not place, only the feeling of unseen gazes pressing on their backs. The humans crouched low in the shadows, their commander at the center, his voice no louder than a whisper, yet strong enough to steady his people. He reminded them that vision was only one tool, that hunters did not need light to kill. He told them to use ears sharper than steel, to use the sense of smell that animals once used to track prey, to use touch and memory, to mark the rhythm of sound, to feel the ground beneath their feet. And his soldiers listened, their faces calm, their eyes half closed, their hands steady on their weapons. One soldier placed his palm against the soil, feeling the faint tremors of alien claws pressing into the ground. He knew their numbers by the rhythm. He knew their path by the weight. Another soldier tilted her head, listening to the flow of breath carried through mist. She could hear fear in the way the aliens inhaled, sharp and quick, and she smiled to herself in silence. A third closed his eyes completely, letting the forest guide him, letting memory and instinct form the map in his mind. He could see without seeing. The aliens shifted nervously. One of them whispered that this was not possible, that no prey could strike without vision. Another hissed that perhaps the humans had machines, hidden eyes of metal that pierced the dark. Their leader snarled that it was lies, that it was trickery. But in his own heart he felt the doubt spreading. His glowing eyes saw everything, yet he understood nothing. Then the humans moved again, not with sight, but with silence and memory. A soldier slid between trees, his steps perfect, his body pressed low. He struck from a mist, his blade cutting across the throat of an alien. And before the body touched the soil, he was gone again, swallowed by darkness. The aliens spun, their glowing eyes wild, but they saw nothing, only the fading life of their fallen comrade. Another human soldier raised a small device. Nothing bright, nothing loud, only a faint pulse that sent echoes into the mist. Her ears caught the return. She knew where the aliens stood, knew where their weight shifted. She lifted her rifle, aimed not with eyes but with sound. The shot cracked, sharp and final. An alien fell with his chest torn open. The others roared in rage. Their leader screamed orders. But fear poisoned their steps. They swung their weapons at shadows. They clawed at the mist. And still the humans did not falter. The human commander's voice whispered through the calm once more. He said vision was their weakness. They relied on it too much. They worshipped it. But humans had walked the earth long before machines, long before fire. They had hunted in caves where no light lived. They had fought beasts in nights darker than this one. He told them the truth that filled their hearts. Eyes are not what make us hunters. It is patience. It is instinct. It is will. The aliens huddled closer, their glowing eyes scanning wildly. One hissed that he felt something pass beside him. Another swore that he heard human breath on his neck. But when they struck out, there was nothing. Only mist, only silence. The humans kept pressing, circling, every step measured, every strike chosen. They whispered to each other in low voices, words meant only for their own. And those whispers carried across the mist, just loud enough for alien ears. The hunters heard voices everywhere, voices they could not place, voices that moved faster than their eyes. Their fear deepened, their hands shook, their glowing eyes wide and empty. One alien shouted that they must retreat, that the prey was cursed, that the forest itself had betrayed them. Their leader struck him down with a claw, hissing that there would be no retreat, that their honor demanded victory. But his words felt weak even to himself. For in the silence that followed, another cry rose as one more of his hunters was taken, dragged screaming into black roots below. The humans did not stop, their breathing calm, their bodies like shadows inside shadows. One soldier climbed higher, resting in branches that bent beneath his weight. He closed his eyes, raised his weapon, and listened. The faintest shuffle of claws, the faintest hiss of fear. He fired once, the shot cutting through the mist. Another alien collapsed, his glowing eyes dimming forever. The leader roared, his voice shattering the silence, his pride burning hotter than the wound in his shoulder. He swore that he would kill a human with his own hands. He swore that he would rip out their weak eyes and crush them. But even as he shouted, a whisper came from behind him, a human voice calm and cold. The words slipped into his ears, quiet yet sharp. "We see you." He spun, claws wide, glowing eyes blazing. But the human was already gone, leaving only the echo of those words. The leader staggered back, his breath heavy, his pride shaking. For the first time in his life, he felt blind. The pack was broken now, their formation scattered, their pride shattered. They huddled in groups, snapping at shadows, whispering prayers to gods that had never heard them before. And still the humans pressed, unseen, unstoppable, patient as the night itself. The truth had become clear. The aliens with glowing eyes were not hunters anymore. They were prey stumbling through fear. And the humans, the ones mocked for weakness, the ones said to be blind, had become the masters of the night. For eyes are not the only way to see. The humans proved it with every strike, every whisper, every step that brought the aliens closer to ruin. And the forest itself seemed to agree, its silence bending toward the human hunt. The leader knew it now, though he would never speak it aloud. This was no hunt anymore. This was slaughter waiting to fall upon them. And the night did not belong to his kind. It belonged to the humans who saw beyond light. Now, the hunters were the hunted. The aliens who once laughed at human weakness now felt the cold grip of fear pressing into their bones. Every step they took in the endless night felt heavier, every breath too loud, every shadow carrying the weight of death. The mist moved around them like a living thing, whispering against their skin, twisting their vision, and in that twisting silence they began to hear sounds that were not there. A claw scraped against stone, and they all spun as one, their glowing eyes burning wide. But nothing waited, only empty branches swaying slowly. One swore he heard human footsteps pacing behind him. He spun but saw nothing, only fog. Another hissed that something touched his back, cold and sharp, but when his brothers looked there was no trace. Fear was breaking them from within, and the humans had not yet struck again. The commander of the alien pack tried to hold them together, his voice rough and sharp. He told them to stay calm, to hold formation, but even his own breath shook. He felt the sting of his wound, blood drying against his skin. He felt the memory of that human voice whispering from the darkness, "We see you," and the words would not leave him. For the first time, he wondered if the prey had become something greater, something more than flesh. The humans waited in silence, patience carved into their bones. They crouched in shadows that moved like water, their faces calm, their breaths soft. Their commander raised his hand, fingers spread wide, and the soldiers stilled. The hunt was not about rushing. It was about breaking the mind before breaking the body, and the aliens were breaking now. A voice drifted through the fog, not loud, not sharp, just a whisper. It came from nowhere and everywhere. The aliens froze, their claws raised, their glowing eyes darting. The voice spoke again, calm and cold. "You cannot see us, but we see you." The words twisted into their minds, and they began to shake. The forest grew quieter. Even the insects seemed to vanish, the air too heavy to breathe. The aliens felt trapped in a cage of silence, each heartbeat echoing like thunder in their ears. One could not hold it. He roared in rage and slashed at the trees, tearing bark and root, but his anger found nothing, only emptiness. A whisper of steel answered him, a flash too quick to follow, and then his roar turned into a gurgle, his body collapsing into the soil. The others staggered back, their glowing eyes burning bright with panic. They called his name, but he did not rise. One more gone, one more torn from their ranks, and the humans did not reveal themselves. The aliens huddled closer, their backs pressed together, their voices shaking. They swore to fight, they swore to kill, but their hands trembled, their breaths came too fast. They were losing not to blades, but to fear. The humans knew it, and they pressed harder. A stone flew through the fog, clattering against roots. The aliens spun and roared, weapons raised. But even as they turned their backs, a shadow moved behind them. A human soldier struck swift, a blade sliding across the leg of one, pulling him down into the dirt. The alien screamed, clawing at the ground, but a hand covered his mouth, dragging him into silence. When the others turned again, he was gone, swallowed by mist. They whispered curses, whispered that this was impossible. Their glowing eyes swept everywhere, but found nothing. One asked in a broken voice if humans were even mortal. Another hissed that perhaps the prey had become spirits of the night. And in their hearts, the lies they told themselves began to sound true. The commander tried again to steady them, his words harsh. He told them the humans used tricks, that the humans used devices and machines. He told them to be proud, to be hunters, but his words were hollow, for the truth lay heavy, that even machines could not move like this. Even devices could not whisper with such patience. This was more than technology. This was something primal, something ancient. The humans had become silence. They had become shadows, and silence was sharper than any claw. Another scream tore through the air, quick and sharp. Another body fell unseen. The aliens staggered, their formation broken, their voices low. One dropped his weapon, his hands shaking too hard to hold it. Another backed away slowly, whispering prayers to forgotten gods. The humans whispered again, voices low but clear. "You thought we were blind, but it is you who cannot see." The words struck harder than any blade. The aliens trembled, their pride turned into ash. One of them snapped, breaking into a sprint, running through the forest, his glowing eyes wide, his breath ragged. He thought escape was still possible. He thought he could outrun the darkness. But the humans were faster, not with speed, but with patience. He ran into a rope stretched tight, his body flipping, crashing into the earth. Before he could rise, a human soldier was upon him, and silence fell again. The others watched, horror twisting their faces. Every shadow seemed to hold a predator. Every tree seemed to whisper death. The night itself had become an enemy, and their glowing eyes, once their greatest strength, now betrayed them. For the humans did not glow, the humans did not shine, The humans became part of the black. The commander roared one last time, his voice echoing through the mist. He told his hunters to retreat, to fall back, to survive. But even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The humans had surrounded them, their silence unbroken, their patience endless. The forest groaned with weight, the mist curled tighter. The aliens stepped back, their glowing eyes darting. They realized they were no longer hunters at all. They were prey caught in a cage of night. The humans closed in, their weapons ready, their hearts calm. Not a single word spoken, not a single sound wasted. The silence was their ally, the fear of the aliens their greatest weapon. And as the last cries of panic rose from the alien throats, the humans struck again, swift and unseen. The forest drank the sound, the night held it close, and fear ruled the darkness completely. The hunters were broken. The prey had become predators, and the night itself whispered one truth. Darkness does not hide humans. Darkness hides their enemies. The night was heavy and endless, the mist curling through the broken trees like a living creature. The air filled with silence, so deep it crushed every sound before it could breathe. The aliens stood together in a ragged circle, their glowing eyes wide and restless, their claws trembling, their breaths uneven. The forest no longer felt like a battlefield to them. It felt like a coffin slowly closing, every shadow a lid, every whisper a nail. They had once laughed at human weakness, once believed humans fragile, but now that belief was rotting inside them. Now fear was gnawing at their pride. Each moment dragged like a chain, each heartbeat heavier than the last. One whispered that they should run. Another hissed that there was nowhere left to flee. The humans were already around them. The darkness belonged to the prey. The commander tried to hold their minds together, his words rough and sharp, but even his voice cracked like broken stone. The humans waited in silence, their bodies hidden among roots and branches, their eyes watching, their patience endless. They knew fear was the sharper blade. They knew panic was stronger than steel, and they let the fear grow like fire in the alien hearts. The commander of the humans signaled with his hand, a simple motion, and the soldiers spread wider through the mist, their steps soft as shadows, their presence unseen. The aliens shifted nervously, their claws scraping against bark. Every movement felt wrong. Every rustle in the leaves sounded like footsteps. One spun and slashed at the mist itself. Another raised his weapon at empty trees. The darkness was alive in their minds, and the humans used that life as a weapon. Then a sound came, soft and low, like breath against the back of the neck. The aliens froze, their glowing eyes darting. The sound came again, a whisper drifting through the fog. You are already in the trap. The words were not shouted, they were not loud, yet they struck harder than thunder. One alien roared in rage and lunged forward, slashing wildly. But his strike met nothing, only mist and silence. From behind him came the sharp crack of movement, and he was pulled down, dragged into the shadows. His scream echoed, once then vanished, leaving only the ragged breathing of the survivors. The commander of the aliens hissed for them to hold together, to form tight ranks. But their formation was already breaking, their fear pushing them apart. Another crash sounded to the left, another to the right. They swung their claws but struck nothing. The humans never revealed themselves. Every attack from the humans was swift, unseen, and gone again. The aliens backed into a clearing where the mist seemed thinner. They thought for a moment it might be safer. They thought perhaps the humans could be seen in open ground. But even here the night pressed in. Even here the silence ruled. And when they looked around, they saw the faint glimmer of shapes in the fog. Not glowing eyes, but human shadows, circling them, closing the cage. The alien commander felt rage clawing at his throat. He roared that they would fight to the last. His soldiers answered with weak cries, their voices shaking. They wanted to believe him, but their bodies betrayed them, their claws too heavy, their eyes too wide. Fear had drained their strength before the humans even struck again. From the trees came another whisper. You thought we were blind, but you were wrong. The aliens turned in circles, searching. The whisper became many whispers, voices from every side. The humans were speaking as one, their words echoing through the mist like spirits. And the aliens realized the truth. They were not fighting enemies of flesh. They were fighting ghosts of the dark. One alien broke, throwing down his weapon and falling to his knees. He begged for mercy, his glowing eyes wet with fear. But mercy did not come. The humans did not answer. The humans did not step forward. Only silence came, and silence was worse than any death. The commander struck his fallen soldier with a claw, rage and shame burning him. He told the others they must fight, they must kill. But even as he shouted, he knew the humans had already won. Not through strength, not through weapons, but through patience, silence, and fear. A sudden movement, quick as lightning, and another alien vanished into the dark. The circle shrank smaller, their numbers falling like leaves in winter. The commander's rage broke into desperation. He charged forward with a roar, claws raised high. But the darkness opened its mouth and swallowed him. His roar turned into a cry, and then into silence. The remaining aliens stumbled back, their glowing eyes flickering, their voices cracking with panic. They realized the trap had been set from the beginning. They realized the humans had never been hunted at all. From the first step into the forest, it was the aliens who had walked into the hunt. And now the jaws of that hunt had closed. The humans moved closer, their shadows surrounding the last survivors. The aliens swung wildly, their claws slicing empty air. Every strike wasted, every breath wasted. They were fighting ghosts they could not touch. And the ghosts struck back with knives and silence. One by one they fell, each scream swallowed by the night. One by one their glowing eyes dimmed, fading into the earth, until only two remained, their backs pressed together, their claws slick with sweat. They whispered prayers, they whispered curses, they whispered for dawn. But dawn would not come for them. The humans tightened the circle, their shadows closer. The two aliens lunged forward, roaring their last cries. But the humans flowed around them like water, cutting quick, moving faster than their eyes could follow. The cries ended in choked gasps, and then there was only silence again. The clearing stood empty, bodies lying cold, the mist curling around them. The humans emerged at last, stepping from shadows with calm faces. Their eyes steady, their breaths smooth, their weapons slick with the night's work. They had not rushed. They had not stumbled. They had hunted with patience and silence. And in that patience, they had broken an enemy that once mocked them. The commander of the humans raised his hand. The soldiers stilled. Not a cheer, not a cry of victory, only silence. For the silence was their greatest weapon, and silence had won the night. The trap had closed. The hunters were gone, and the humans walked on, deeper into the mist, ready for whatever darkness came next. The forest lay silent beneath the endless sky, the bodies of the fallen scattered like broken statues, the mist winding over them as if the earth itself wished to bury the memory. The humans stood still among the shadows, their breath steady, their faces unreadable, their eyes calm. They had fought in silence, and silence had rewarded them. But the night was not finished, for the lesson had not yet been carved deep enough. Far above in orbit, the alien fleet waited, their commanders certain that the hunting party had returned with victory. They did not know the truth yet. They did not know their hunters had become prey. Signals reached them slowly, fragments of broken messages, half screams and static. And though they tried to ignore it, dread began to coil inside their ships. On the ground, the human commander raised his hand. His soldiers gathered close. Their eyes glimmered faintly in the moonlight, not with unnatural glow, but with determination that no shadow could smother. He spoke quietly, his voice carrying through the trees. They thought we were blind, He said, "They thought darkness was their home. But tonight we have shown that patience is sharper than claws, silence heavier than fangs." The soldiers nodded, not cheering, not smiling, for they knew the night was not a triumph, but a warning. A warning to every species that dared to call them weak. A warning that humans had learned long ago to master the night, to live with shadows, to hunt with silence. One soldier asked softly what they should do with the bodies. The commander's answer was simple: leave them. The earth would take them, the mist would hide them, and their fleet would soon understand what silence meant. For silence was not absence, silence was truth. The humans moved deeper into the forest, vanishing like smoke. They left no mark, no trail, only the echoes of fear behind them. As they marched, the commander thought of the past. He thought of ancient hunters crouched in caves, watching prey in the firelight. He thought of warriors stalking through jungles and deserts, patient as stone. He thought of all the nights where humanity had survived by waiting, by listening, by striking when least expected. This night was not new. It was old as blood, old as bone. It was not about technology or ships or weapons. It was about what humanity had always been. The lesson was not for them, but for the galaxy. And soon the galaxy would learn it. In orbit, the alien fleet began to stir uneasily. Scouts sent to the surface did not return. Sensors showed strange readings, flickers of movement, but no heat, no sound. They whispered among themselves that something was wrong. But pride forced them to deny it. Pride chained them to arrogance. Until at last they saw it. From the trees came signals, faint but sharp. Not words, not screams, but silence carried on their channels. Every communication filled with nothing, a void heavier than any sound. It was the humans speaking in their own way. A voice of silence, a message of fear. The alien commanders raged, ordering their fleets to descend. But hesitation filled their crews, hesitation rooted in the unknown. If the hunters on the ground had fallen so easily, what chance did they have? They remembered the stories told around mess halls, stories of human eyes mocked as weak. And now those same eyes stared back from the dark, unseen, waiting. On the ground, the humans prepared traps among the ruins, not of steel or fire, but of patience and silence. They knew the fleet would break. They knew fear was already spreading through metal halls. All they had to do was wait, as they had always waited. Night deepened, the mist thickened. The world seemed to vanish beneath a veil. And within that veil, humanity thrived. Every breath calm, every heartbeat steady, every step a promise. At last the alien fleet sent down soldiers. They landed in clusters, their weapons bright, their eyes glowing. They shouted to one another, trying to drown out the silence. But the forest swallowed their voices, their words sank like stones. And soon they felt it too, the weight of the night pressing on their backs. The humans watched from the shadows, their patience unbroken. One whispered command from their leader, and the circle closed again. Not rushed, not reckless, only steady. The aliens grew restless, slashing at shadows, firing at empty trees. And one by one, they began to vanish. The same way their hunters had vanished before them. The alien fleet above listened to the screams. Short, sudden, then gone. They tried to send more soldiers, but none returned. Silence filled every channel. Silence filled every heart. Until finally they knew they were not fighting soldiers, they were fighting the night itself. And the night was human. The alien flagship faltered, pride crumbling into terror. One commander whispered that they should leave. Another cursed him for cowardice. But as the silence deepened, as the reports stopped, their courage broke. Engines roared, fleets shifted, and like predators fleeing their own prey, they pulled away from orbit. They left the dead behind. They left the planet to its ghosts. And they swore never to hunt humans in the dark again. On the surface, the humans stood among the trees. They watched the stars as the fleet retreated. No cheer rose, no cry of victory, only silence. For the silence was the lesson. A lesson carved not in words, but in fear. A lesson the galaxy would carry forever. The commander looked at his soldiers, their faces pale in the moonlight. He spoke softly. "We were called weak, we were called blind, but tonight we taught them, the night belongs to us." The soldiers bowed their heads, not in triumph, but in respect. For the night was not theirs to own. The night was theirs to endure. The mist closed around them once more, the bodies of their enemies fading into the earth. The silence heavier than stone. And as they marched onward, their eyes steady, their steps calm, the galaxy trembled in fear of the final truth. Humans do not need light to see. Humans do not need strength to kill. Humans only need patience, silence, and the night. That was the final lesson, and it would never be forgotten,